Okay, so let's jump right into this. We're going to talk about what it really means to create space in our lives. And trust me, it's about so much more than just, clearing out a room. As we're about to see, it can all start in the most ordinary, unexpected places.
And our story today kicks off in a super ordinary place, a bus stop. Think about it. It's a moment that could have just been, silence, waiting, checking your phone. But instead, it turns into something way more profound. So, you've got the person telling this story, just minding their own business, passing the time with a book, a totally normal, everyday scene, right? But then, something happens that changes the whole dynamic.
A guy in his 50s comes and sits down next to him. They do that little polite smile thing we all do, a quick acknowledgement, and then our narrator goes right back to his book. And honestly, the moment totally could have just ended right there.
But it doesn't. The silence gets broken. The stranger leans over and asks a simple question. How long have you been waiting for the bus? And that little question leads to another one about the man's suit, and suddenly a real conversation starts to unfold.
And just like that, boom, everything shifts. Turns out the man is on his way to church, and the stranger says he's a Christian too. They exchange names, and in that tiny little interaction, two complete strangers become, well, something more. They've created this moment of genuine connection. A brand new relational space was just born, right there on a bus bench.
So let's stop and think about that. What really just happened in that moment? It was way more than just a chat, right? It was the creation, maybe even accidentally, of a very specific kind of environment between two people.
So let's really unpack this powerful idea that was at play. When we talk about creating space for each other, what does that actually mean?
Well, first off, it's not about emptiness. It's not a void. It's actually the complete opposite. It's this active process of building an environment. A safe, open place where a real, genuine connection has a chance to spark and grow.
And this is where it gets really interesting. We're not just talking about physical room, geographical space. This idea of space exists in our minds, in our feelings, even in our spirits. And the key takeaway here is that we're not just passively living in these spaces. We are the architects. We are actively building them every single day.
Okay, so our source material actually suggests that building these kinds of spaces is a fundamental part of a rich, balanced life. It even breaks it down into 4 dimensions. So what does that look like?
Well, according to the source, to live a truly full life, we need to intentionally create space in 4 key areas. First, with God or, our deepest spiritual selves. Second, with our neighbors, the people around us. Third, and this one's huge, is with our own self, making that room for reflection. And finally, with creation itself, with the world we live in. The idea is that if you neglect one of these, the whole thing can get kind of thrown off balance.
And for a perfect example of getting this wrong, look no further than the story of the rich fool. I mean, this guy was the king of creating material space. He had so much grain, he literally had to build bigger barns to hold it all. But what about his inner space? It was completely empty. He was so focused on stuff, he totally lost touch with himself, with what was actually important. Talk about a cautionary tale.
Okay, so on the flip side, for a really powerful example of someone creating a non-physical space, especially under intense pressure, the source points us to this incredibly dramatic story involving Jesus.
So the scene is this. A woman caught in adultery is dragged out in public. But the guys who brought her, the accusers, they aren't really looking for justice. Nope, this whole thing is a trap designed to corner Jesus.
And you can just feel the space they've created. It is hostile, it is toxic, it's thick with judgment, public shaming, and the very real threat of violence. There is absolutely zero room for mercy or understanding here.
But Jesus doesn't play their game. Instead of jumping into their argument, he does something totally unexpected. He just kneels down and starts writing in the dirt. Imagine that. He creates this pause, he breaks the tension, and then he delivers that famous line which masterfully shifts the focus away from the woman and forces every single accuser to look at themselves. In an instant, he carves out a new space, a space for reflection.
And the result? It's immediate. One by one, the accusers just walk away. The woman, who was literally moments away from being stoned to death, is given a chance to start over. That space of pure, raw judgment was totally transformed into a space of mercy. It's incredible. So here's the really crucial takeaway. This ability to reshape the space around us, it's not just for famous figures from ancient stories. This is a practical, everyday skill. It's something we all can and should be doing.
Because when we intentionally create these kinds of spaces for other people, we're doing more than just being nice. We're literally expanding the potential for connection in every corner of our lives. We're closing the gap between us and strangers, we're making our family bonds stronger, and we're building trust in our communities.
And there's this great quote that says, for these spaces to really work, they need two key things. They have to be just, meaning they're fair for everyone involved, and they have to be hospitable, which means they make people feel safe and welcome enough to be their real, authentic selves.
So this brings it all back to us. This isn't some big abstract idea. It's about small things, right? It could be as simple as putting your phone down when someone's talking to you, actually creating a space of focus. Or maybe it's asking a friend, hey, how are you really doing? And then shutting up and actually listening to the answer. The power to transform any given moment is right there, waiting for you. So the question is, today, what kind of space are you going to create?